I didn't plan on seeing her that night. I didn't plan on seeing anyone. After the breakup, my apartment felt like a cage. Every corner echoing with words I wished I hadn't said. My hands shook when I dropped the keys on the counter. And before I even had the chance to breathe, I heard her door open. She stepped out quietly as if she had been waiting. 61 years old, but the kind of beautiful that time could never dim. Her hair was pinned up loosely, soft strands falling around her face. She wore only a cardigan over a thin blouse, casual, simple, and somehow far too intimate for the hallway at midnight. "You look like a ghost," she whispered, her voice low, careful. Then, leaning closer so no one else could hear, she said the words that burned into me. "Come to my place instead." I froze. My throat went dry. She smiled slightly, but it wasn't kindness. It was something deeper, almost daring. Before I could answer, she turned and left her door open. I followed. Her apartment was warm, dimly lit, the smell of chamomile tea wrapping around me. A single lamp glowed in the corner, but most of the light came from the flickering candle on her table. She gestured toward it casually, though her eyes never left me. "Sit. You shouldn't be alone tonight." I sat, though every nerve in me screamed this was wrong, or worse, that it was exactly what I wanted. She poured tea into 2 cups, her hand steady, her blouse slipping just slightly as she leaned forward. I looked away too late. She noticed, of course. She always noticed. "So," she said softly, handing me the cup, "she left you?" The question pierced sharper than I expected. "Yes." Her eyes lingered on me. "Then maybe it's her mistake." The room fell quiet except for the storm outside. Rain tapping against the glass. I wrapped my fingers around the cup. But it wasn't the tea warming me. It was her. She sat across the table, leaning on one arm, her neckline catching the candle light. Every movement, every glance felt deliberate. I told myself to drink, to focus, but my hand trembled. She tilted her head, watching. "You're nervous," she whispered, a smile touching her lips. "Shouldn't I be?" Her laughter was soft. Too soft. She reached across the table, brushing her fingers near mine. Close enough that the heat of her skin reached me, but not close enough to touch. The space between our hands pulsed with tension. A silence louder than words. The thunder cracked, the candle flickered, and for a breathless moment, her face glowed in the shadows. I leaned forward, unable to stop myself. She didn't move. She let me, our eyes locked, the world shrinking until it was just her and me, and the question hanging in the air. How far would we let this go? She broke the silence first, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't look at me like that unless you mean it." My chest tightened. I wanted to answer, but I couldn't. She leaned back slowly, her smile unreadable, and sipped her tea as if nothing had happened. But the moment had already happened. 10 minutes in her kitchen felt like a trap. I didn't want to escape. The tea had gone cold, but neither of us cared. We sat in the half-dark, the storm outside beating steady against the glass, our silence louder than any words. She leaned her chin against her hand, studying me with that half-smile, the kind that unsettled me more than anything my ex had ever said. "You don't know how to sit still," she murmured. Her eyes flicked to my shaking leg under the table, then back to my face. "I'm not used to this," I admitted, though I wasn't sure what this was. Her gaze, her apartment, the feeling of being caught in something dangerous yet irresistible. She tilted her head, her earrings catching the candle light. "Not used to what?" "Being wanted." The words landed like thunder. My mouth went dry. I forced a laugh, but it cracked halfway. She didn't laugh with me. Instead, she reached for the candle, her hand passing close enough that her sleeve brushed my wrist. A deliberate accident. The flame bent, flickered. In the soft glow, her blouse slipped a little as she leaned forward. Neckline opened just enough to make my breath catch. I dropped my gaze, ashamed of myself, but she caught it. She always did. "See," she whispered, her tone playful and sharp all at once. "You're not as steady as you pretend." I wanted to stand to break the moment, but she slid the candle closer, trapping me in its glow. The shadows painted her face, her lips soft, her eyes unblinking, couldn't move. The thunder crashed again and the power blinked out completely. Only the candle remained. She gasped softly at the darkness. And before I could think, her hand found mine warm, firm. She didn't let go. For a long time we sat like that. The storm outside, the storm inside. Our hands locked together on the table. Her thumb brushed mine once, absent-minded, as though she was testing me. I didn't pull away, couldn't. She leaned closer, her shoulder brushing mine now, her voice low enough to feel against my skin. You don't have to leave, you know. My chest tightened. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, the warmth of her breath. One more inch and our lips would meet. I leaned too far, too fast. She stopped me with a finger pressed lightly against my wrist. Not rejection. A pause, a warning. Careful, she whispered. Once you start, you can't take it back. Her eyes searched mine in the flicker of candle light, daring me to argue, daring me to move. I couldn't. My entire body screamed forward, but I stayed in that suspended moment, held by her hand, her gaze, her voice. She leaned back, finally, breaking the spell with a laugh that sounded too soft, too nervous. She poured more tea into my cup, though neither of us drank. Stay a little longer, she said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world, but nothing about it felt simple. The storm hadn't passed. It only changed. The rain softened to a steady rhythm, but inside her kitchen, the air was heavy, dense, with everything unspoken. The candle on the table had burned low, the wax dripping slowly down the glass dish, and its light traced her face in gold and shadow. She sat across from me, her cardigan slipping slightly from one shoulder. She didn't notice, or maybe she did. Her eyes met mine, calm but burning, as if she was daring me to admit what I'd been holding back. Funny, she said, her voice low. I thought heartbreak would make you quieter, but you seem louder without saying a word. I swallowed hard. Maybe it's because I don't know what I'm allowed to say. She leaned forward, resting her elbow on the table, her chin in her hand. Then, don't say it, she whispered. Show it. My chest tightened. The words hung between us. Dangerous. Impossible to ignore. I shifted closer, my knee brushing hers under the table. She didn't move away. Instead, she tilted her head, her lips parting slightly, her breath uneven. The thunder rolled in the distance, softer now. She rose from her chair, walking to the window, the movement slow, deliberate. I watched the curve of her silhouette against the pale glow of the street lamp outside. She pulled the curtain aside, rain dripping down the glass, and for a moment she looked almost untouchable, like a figure out of time. I stood too, almost without thinking, and found myself behind her, too close, close enough to see the loose strand of hair that had fallen against her neck, to feel the warmth radiating from her body. My hand lifted instinctively, hovering just inches away from her shoulder. I stopped, trembling. She turned her head slightly, catching me in the act. Her smile was faint, knowing, "Why are you afraid of me?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. She stepped back, closing the distance until her face was only inches from mine. Her eyes held mine steady, unblinking, the blue of them flickering with candle light. I could feel her breath, soft and uneven, brushing against my cheek. I leaned forward just a little. Her hand rose, not to stop me, but to hover near my chest, trembling as if she couldn't decide whether to push me away or pull me closer. The moment stretched, fragile, endless, and then a sharp knock shattered it. The sound echoed through the apartment, loud against the quiet storm. We both froze, our eyes still locked, our bodies still leaning into the space between us. The knock came again, softer this time, and then nothing. She stepped back quickly, her hand flying to her chest, her lips pressing together. The light in her eyes dimmed, replaced by something I couldn't name. "Probably a neighbor," she whispered, though her voice wasn't steady. I didn't answer. My pulse thundered in my ears, the almost moment still burning in my chest. We stood there in silence, the knock already fading into memory. But the distance between us, closer than ever, felt impossible to undo. The knock at the door faded, leaving the silence between us trembling like a wire pulled too tight. She didn't move to answer it. Neither did I. The storm outside had turned into a soft drizzle, and the candle's flame wavered, its light sketching her in golden shadow. She exhaled slowly, her hands still pressed against her chest. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. "What?" Her eyes lifted to mine. "My heart." The words made me forget to breathe. I stepped closer without thinking, my chest almost brushing hers. She didn't step back. Instead, she tilted her head, watching me with a mixture of fear and something dangerously close to longing. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said. "Neither should I answered. The space between us burned hotter with every heartbeat. She reached for the table as if to steady herself, but her hand landed near mine instead. Slowly, deliberately, I turned my palm upward. Her fingers slipped into it like they had always belonged there. Her skin was warm, soft, trembling slightly. I held her hand, not too firmly, not too gently, just enough to let her know I wasn't letting go. She looked down at our joined hands, then back up at me. Her lips parted. "You don't understand," she whispered. "This is dangerous." "I do." My voice cracked, but I didn't look away. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The candle hissed. The rain tapped at the glass, and the air between us thickened until I thought it might break me. Then slowly she stepped closer, her shoulder brushing mine, her face inches away, her eyes closed, but instead of the kiss I thought was coming, she lowered her head against my shoulder. I froze, then wrapped my arm around her cautiously, afraid she might pull away. She didn't. She leaned into me, her breath uneven, her weight light but certain against my chest. The world narrowed to the sound of her breathing, the warmth of her body pressed to mine, the smell of rain still clinging to her hair. My pulse roared in my ears. She whispered against my shoulder so softly I almost missed it. "If I let this happen, we can't go back." I tightened my hold just slightly, enough to let her know my answer without words. She lifted her head then, her forehead brushing mine, her eyes searching me desperately. For a heartbeat, our lips hovered only a breath apart. Her hand rose, trembling, to the back of my neck. And then, just when the moment teetered on the edge, she pulled back with a sharp breath, pressing her palm against my chest as if to hold me still. Her eyes burned, conflicted, her voice low and trembling. "Not yet." The candle flickered violently, then went out, plunging us into darkness. Her hand remained on my chest, my arm still around her. Both of us caught in a silence more intimate than any kiss. The candle had died sometime in the night, but we hadn't moved. The room was draped in shadows, the storm outside replaced by the slow hush of dawn. Her hands still rested on my chest. My arm still circled her waist as if letting go would mean admitting that everything had gone too far. She shifted slightly, the movement small but electric. "Do you realize what you've done?" she whispered. My voice was low, unsteady. "I stayed." She lifted her eyes to mine, her face so close I could see the faint lines etched by years of laughter and loneliness. There was no disguise now, no mischief, no armor, only raw honesty. "You shouldn't want this," she said, but her fingers traced the edge of my shirt, trembling, betraying her words. I caught her hand gently, holding it against my chest. "Maybe I shouldn't," I admitted. "But I do." Her lips parted, her breath shaky. For a moment, she seemed ready to step away, to build the wall back up. But then she leaned forward, her forehead touching mine, her eyes fluttering closed. The warmth of her breath mingled with mine, the silence between us tighter than any embrace. "If you stay," she whispered, barely audible, "everything changes." The words wrapped around me like the storm itself. I closed my eyes, pressing my hand over hers. "Maybe that's what I want." The air quivered. Her other hand lifted slowly, sliding to the back of my neck, pulling me infinitesimally closer. My pulse thundered. My breath stalled. Our lips hovered in the space of a breath, a heartbeat, a single choice. And then she stopped, not with distance but with control. Her lips hovered near mine, so close I could feel the tremor of her restraint. She smiled faintly, tender and aching, and whispered, "Not here, not yet." I let out a shaky laugh, though nothing about the moment felt light. My arms tightened around her, holding her as if the dawn itself might steal her away. The first rays of sunlight slipped through the curtains, painting her in gold. She pulled back just enough to look at me fully. 10 hours, she said softly, almost in wonder. You came for 10 minutes and you never left. Her hands squeezed mine firm, certain. And for the first time since the breakup, I realized I didn't feel broken anymore. The world outside began again. Neighbors stirring, cars starting, life returning. But inside her kitchen, with her forehead still brushing mine, time remained suspended. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't know what people would say. All I knew was this: I wasn't going anywhere.